Do you know that nearly 3 in 5 people are going to be looking for a job in the current marketplace? I mean, we know it's crazy out there, right? But how do you prepare to leave the job you're in? Leave it well and be ready for your next position. Well, let's talk about that coming up on Project Skills Mentor. Step number 1, manage your LinkedIn like a pro. LinkedIn is one of your best marketplaces for your skill set. It's not only a great place to find a job, it's the place where your CV shines most. Your resume is essentially your online profile. So be mindful of your social media presence. And here's some top tips for how you can make sure your LinkedIn is ready for your next position. How do you do that? By focusing on where you are today. If you have a job today, make sure your skills are updated. Make sure you've documented all of your successes and outcomes, and then ask for online references. Online references while you're still working at that company are a great way of making sure you've documented your biggest success. Now, you're not going to ask for references from everybody, but do so from maybe the top 2 or 3 people, your manager's manager, maybe a colleague or a peer. And if you need to, write the reference for them. So all they have to do is cut and paste. And remember, you want to do that before you leave the company. Dust off that resume. Make sure your resume is up to date and has your skills, your experience, and your outcomes. People often forget this. Being outcome-oriented, understanding how your work translates into business benefits is really important. A fantastic way is to show KPIs, showing a metric that shows a critical success factor, like I changed this process and it improved productivity by 10%, shows 2 key things. 1, you understand how metrics work, and 2, you understand how your job relates to a metric. Another kind of metric you can say is, I managed 10 people, not I managed a lot or I had a big team. Give a number so people understand what that FTE or full-time equivalent number you managed was. Being specific helps people really understand that not only you're a professional who understands the details of your job, but that you understand that the details matter. And step 3 before you leave is make contacts with all of your internal contacts. Once you've left a company, you kind of lose track of people. You might even forget who you knew there in a few years. So make sure you've got your Rolodex, which I think of as LinkedIn, but there are many other systems to do this, is up to date. In your industry, in your country, in your economy, it might be that the same people just go around in circles. You will meet people over again. Your span of influence can improve if you keep connected to people in an informal, not too spammy way. If you've got those connections documented, like in LinkedIn, you know how to find them when the time comes to either ask for their help or offer help to them. Maybe you're now a salesperson and your LinkedIn might be the first place you go to when you're looking for new customer opportunities. And if you're getting ready to leave your job, step 4 is critical. It's about documenting what you can take with you. There's some particular points about this, right? You cannot take the intellectual property of your company, even if you created it. But you can take the formats, the templates of things, if you check your handbook, your employee handbook, or your personal contract. Those 2 documents should tell you where the borders are of what you can take. Because, for instance, maybe you've created a process flow and it came from you. You know this accounting area or this business area or this production area, and you want to take the concept of it. Well, first of all, make sure you cleanse it of anything related to that company. And second of all, make sure it's generic enough that it can be said to be something that you would recreate again. This way, it keeps you from recreating the wheel, but basically you're taking only the information that would be pertinent to a new situation. And of course, really make sure you're following the rules, because otherwise it can come back to bite you. Also, make sure you're taking any of the documents that you created for yourself. You can recreate it because that knowledge is still in your head. So start to do that offline. Recreate the knowledge completely separately, but don't lose track of those golden ideas you had where you can replicate that content for the future. And maybe you think, well, this new job isn't related to that. But if you had a great idea and you want to create a generic version of that idea, then go ahead and do that before you lose the concept, especially if you have to recreate it from scratch in another way. And if you're going to leave your job or be forced out due to labor cuts, be prepared to leave without burning bridges. And that means how to give notice or how to walk out the door with your head up high. To do this, you're going to need to make sure you have your elevator pitch for leaving. The why doesn't always matter. You have to find a why that's palatable. You don't want to say, because I hated my team, because my boss was a jerk. This is not really helpful. Vengefulness on the way out can actually come back to bite you because, again, in a small world, these people will come back in your life. And if they're your coworkers, your customer, or your colleague in the future, you're going to want to play nice on the way out. And be clear about your leaving details, such as, I'm giving my 2 weeks notice. My last day of work will be April 30th. Be clear about how you're going to give that notice and who you're going to give it to. If you give it verbally, always follow up in writing. It's really important to do that and to do it immediately so that if you send a 2-week notice email and your last day is the 30th, but you only sent it on the 28th, you may have problems later. You want to make sure you leave on good terms, get all of your pay before you leave, and make sure whether you want the job or not, that you could be considered rehirable in the future. And the last thing is plan your exit timeline. If you're planning to leave, and you've given notice, in that last 2 weeks, you want to wrap up big projects or transition them to someone else. Book your exit interview to make sure you know when that exit interview is going to happen and what happens after that. Can you come back to work or do you need to leave the office immediately following the exit interview? And here's an important point if you're a manager. Give your team their reviews. If you were a manager and you had great people, why didn't you give references online? Hiring managers might kind of wonder, what kind of manager were you? Because that shows you being a manager, you acknowledging others. Be sure and do that if you're a manager. In the last week, make sure you understand your contract so you can clean up your desk with the assurance that you're not throwing away anything really important. But you want to get rid of all the junk that means something to you but to nobody else, and especially anything personal. I start taking that stuff home early, not on the last day. And, of course, there'll be a moment when you need to return all company property. So make sure you've documented all the company property you're returning. Even if your company doesn't formally document it, you document it. You get an email with a return receipt saying, I am sending you all of my documentation. Here is how I'm cleaning up my desk. Here's my badge and everything else I need to give to you before I leave the company. And another thing I really like you to do, and this is, again, elegance on the way out, it's thank the people that helped you. Write a nice internal email saying, thanks to so-and-so, thanks to my team, thanks to my boss. It's been a great run of however many years. I want to thank you, and by the way, see you as I continue my journey. On your last day, you might even want to put a public notice on LinkedIn saying, thanks to everyone, looking forward to my new job. You can find me at, etc., etc. And it never hurts to do one last walk around, shake everybody's hand, and say goodbye. It gives the feeling of you being out the door with a smile. And that's a powerful memory for everyone around you to have. See my links below to my article on how to start your new job and how to exit an old one. And if you found this information helpful, please give this video a like, consider subscribing to the channel, and check out this video on how to start day 1 for your next job. And I'll see you next time on ProjectSkillsMentor.com. Bye-bye, everybody.